Hello, writers! Today's lesson of the week, the first lesson of the week for this week is a body paragraph refresher. So as you are turning your outline into a paper, you should have viewed all of that information already on how to take the outline and turn it into the structure of your paper, and then begin to fill the outline in with some body paragraphs. Remember, I do recommend that you start with a particular section of your paper, maybe the section on the causes of the problem or where this problem came from, like the history behind this controversy or whatever it happens to be. And use the sources that specifically help you develop that section. Or maybe you're working first in the effects section where you're talking about why this is such a big problem, what are some symptoms of the problem, what are the negative effects this problem is having on different types of people, the environment, whatever it is that you're talking about, right? So we're working within one of these sections and we're taking some of our main ideas, turning them into body paragraphs. And it really is important to remember the basics of building a really good body paragraph. So we talked about some of this earlier in the semester, and this is just a new vocabulary, a new way of thinking about it, which is claim, evidence, reasoning. You may see this referred to as a CER paragraph structure. So claim, evidence, reasoning, right? A really important idea behind this is that when you're pulling in evidence in a research paper, the evidence does not speak for itself. The evidence does not speak for itself. So you're pulling in a quotation or you're paraphrasing some study from a source, but that evidence is not going to be effective in your paper unless you're using logical reasoning to explain what conclusion the evidence supports. So this is one way that you get plenty of your own voice within the paper. Your sources help you make your points, but they don't make the points for you, right? This is that dinner party concept. You've invited a source to the party. They are pulling, their evidence is part of the discussion, but it doesn't support your claim unless you make it support your claim using some of your own logical explanation to tell your readers what they're supposed to be getting out of that evidence, how that evidence supports your claim. So, claim, evidence, reasoning, progression through your paragraphs looks something like this. So remember, each paragraph will start with a claim. A topic sentence in an argument paper or research paper should be a claim. It's an assertion that you're making. It's not a question. Usually, almost always, it's not a source, right? It is a claim or an assertion that you are making. Like, the main cause of your problem is blank, right? So you're going to have a very clear claim at the first sentence of each of your body paragraphs. So here's a really simplified example. Pizza is a healthy alternative to fast food, right? That's an assertion, it's a claim, it's debatable, and that is sort of an assertion to back up my, the thesis could be pizza's awesome, right? The evidence then, here's a piece of evidence. Pizza is made with tomato sauce. So that's sort of a fact that I'm using to back up that claim. Pizza is made with tomato sauce. Remember, some evidence comes from sources, but not all evidence that has to come from sources. You could have your own examples. That's a form of evidence. You could have personal experience. That's a form of evidence, right? So whatever type of evidence you have, statistics, facts, case studies, news stories, your own personal experience, or examples that you have come up with yourself. But pizza is made with tomato sauce in and of itself does not support the claim that pizza is a healthy alternative, because the fact that pizza is made from tomato sauce doesn't speak for itself. Here's the reasoning step. And this is a step that a lot of us are tending to lack in our first papers, that comes in to explain how the evidence supports the claim. Tomato sauce has many vitamins and minerals, as well as antioxidants, all of which are essential to good health. These vitamins and antioxidants are often absent from other types of fast food, so eating pizza with tomato sauce can be a healthier alternative. So that's me sort of logically working through the logical steps that make the evidence support the claim. Right? And notice this is a couple sentences, and this is how your paragraphs will end up with mainly your own voice in them, even when you're calling in evidence from other sources. So after each piece of evidence you pull in, your job is to then provide the reasoning, the explanation, the logic to connect the dots for your readers. Here's another example. If a thesis in a paper where I am an excellent candidate for the position of head beekeeper, Your supporting claims, your body paragraphs might look like this. So these are like reasons to support your claim. I'm experienced. I learn new things quickly. I work well with others. I'm passionate about bees. If I were going to develop this paragraph number 3, I work well with others. Here's some evidence. I've completed several projects with other people. I'm part of a beekeeping team at my current position. But that evidence doesn't speak for itself. I've completed several projects with other people, but how does that support the idea that I work well with others? I'm part of a beekeeping team at my current position, but how does that support the idea that I work well with others? So after each piece of evidence you pull in, you want to ask yourself that. How does this evidence support the claim I made in the start of my paragraph? So here's some reasoning to connect those dots and show how the evidence supports the claim. Being part of these teams has honed my teamwork and leadership skills by requiring me to collaborate, seek and provide criticism, and value the skills of diverse people. That's the missing link, that reasoning that explains how the evidence shows that you work well with others. So keep in mind as well, explaining yourself is not the same as repeating yourselves. A lot of times after the evidence, beginning academic writers will just come in and sort of say what the evidence said. So this might sound something like, in other words, so-and-so is saying this, which can be really helpful if your evidence is difficult for your readers to understand or needs to be broken down a bit. But then you also need to go a step further to explain how that evidence is important or how that evidence links back to your claim. So take a look at this use of evidence here. My claim is in yellow. Today we are too self-centered. Here's some evidence. Most families no longer sit down to eat together, preferring instead to eat on the go while rushing to the next appointment. And then coming in as the writer, everything is about what we want. So this is a weak use of evidence, and I want you to think about why. And really, the reasoning for why this is a weak use of evidence is that evidence is not actually supporting the claim because there's no explanation that actually links it to the claim. Okay, families don't sit down to eat together, but how is that related to being self-centered, right? You don't want to force your audience to make that connection themselves. It's your job to make the evidence work for you. So here's a much better example. You can see the reasoning here in red that's been added. Sit-down meals are a time to share and connect with others. However, that connection has become less valued as families begin to prize individual activities over shared time. So that explains how not eating together reflects the idea of being self-centered. Okay, and I've added a little bit more explanation of what I mean by self-centered as well. So I've sort of added some padding around the quotation. That's more of me connecting the evidence to, right? This is that, coming back to that sandcastle metaphor. I'm adding my own towers around the sandcastle to make it work for my argument. Okay, I also want to remind you about synthesis because all research papers that have more than one source are synthesis papers. You're synthesizing multiple sources and you're also synthesizing your own ideas within there too. So you will still have synthesis within these paragraphs. And in fact, I expect the synthesis to be a little more mature than it was in the first paragraph. So in a synthesis paragraph, just remember, you've got a claim, you're pulling in evidence, you've got the reasoning to explain how the evidence supports the claim, but then you're transitioning into a new source. So, and then again, after that new quotation, you've got your evidence, you also have your reasoning, and then you tie the whole paragraph's idea back to the thesis. So don't forget, these paragraphs will have multiple sources working with each other, using some of those synthesis connectors as well. So here's some evidence from source A, here's what that means and why that's important. I'm going to link it to this other source as well. Here's some additional evidence to support that. Here's a different type of evidence. Here's some evidence that complicates the issue a little bit more. And then reason it all together towards the end of the paragraph. So there's a couple supplementary materials to go along with this lesson that I'd like for you to take a look at. Mostly examples, but also a little bit of guide on how to accomplish this. So the first one is called Explaining and Analyzing Evidence, Claim Evidence Reasoning Handout. Okay, Explaining and Analyzing Evidence, claim, evidence, reasoning, handout. So it's got 2 little sections on the handout. Don't know why that stumped me to say. So here is, it's from a resource I found online, Does Evidence Speak for Itself? So sort of talking you through it. Questions you can ask yourself about the evidence. Here's the source that came from in case you'd like to read more in depth. And then here's a paragraph example. And again, I've color coded so you can see. What I want you to notice about this one is the large amount of reasoning. So this is a really nice paragraph. It's not a synthesis paragraph, but it is nice because it includes a lot of the writer's own reasoning and own explanation and own thoughts in relation to the quotation that they've pulled in. So this is a paragraph that's highly the writer's own voice and the writer's own writing, and that's what we want. The second one is an example from a student paper from a previous semester. I've included the thesis just so you can see how this paragraph would relate to the thesis. And again, it's color-coded with reasoning in red. This is a synthesis paragraph, so it's got a couple different examples pulled in, including one of the student's own examples that doesn't come from a source. And then you'll see how after each source piece, there is the reasoning in red. So in between, right, we were padding the source material on both sides with plenty of the writer's own reasoning. So you can read through that to provide another example, this time written by a Comp 2 student here at UCM in a previous semester. Okay, so just to quickly remind you, the evidence never speaks for itself. Anytime you pull in evidence, you have to explain what you want your readers to get out of that evidence and how that evidence logically links back to the point that you are trying to make in your paragraph and in your paper. That's today's lesson. Check out the supplementary materials for more information and let me know if you have any questions related to how you're doing it in your papers. Keep working on those drafts. Bye.